Let's explore the way in which meditation could help us to let go of desire. This evening's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit. Is it possible to detach from your desires? The person writes, and continues. I've recently been exploring spirituality and came across an interesting concept about desires and suffering. It seems that when we cling to our desires, we often end up feeling dissatisfied. And I gotta say right here, it is a delight to see someone use gentle language, to be less rigid in the language and more flexible, to be less controlling and more laid back. So well done. Let's continue. On the other hand, letting go of those desires can lead to a sense of contentment. Living in a materialistic world can be challenging to detach from our desires. How can I shift my mindset away from constantly thinking I need to do X to get Y? What meditation can help me achieve a sense of detachment from my desires? So we're going to begin our tonight's journey with broad brushstrokes before we even entertain the possibility of fine details. Let us review the symbolic nature of communication. All complex life forms on this planet have evolved to think symbolically. When you or I listen to or read a discourse, here's a useful rule of thumb. The more concise the discourse, typically the more nuance is required. The more literalist our perception of the Buddha's teachings, the more frustration we will experience. Let's take, for example, the Four Noble Truths. From a certain point of view, even a biologist will confirm that there are stressors. There are circumstantial stressors. There are physical stressors. There are interpersonal stressors. And there are mental stressors. Despite the insistence of 1,000 self-help professionals, stress is not optional. We evolved to perceive stress as a survival mechanism. Our great ancestors who could not perceive stress did not live long enough to pass on their genetic traits. They got gobbled up for lunch. We evolved to respond to our circumstances and our bodies and our relationships and our minds thusly. The underparts of our brain have evolved to absolutely hate peril, scarcity, pain, scorn, and anonymity. All these things are counterproductive to survival. Whether we know it or not, whether we feel it or not, whether we admit it or not, these things are hardwired into our underbrain. Our underbrain is also wired to absolutely crave safety, plenty, praise, and fame. All these things contribute to survival, increase the odds of our survival. Let's get petty for a second. In the tribal scenario, the most hated person of the tribe got the shittiest jobs, the most dangerous jobs, the least amount of food, the lowest quality of food, and the least reproductive opportunities. Whereas the most beloved member of the tribe got the coolest job, the safest job, the best food, and the best reproductive opportunities. If you don't believe that we are still wired this way, may I remind you of junior high? May I remind you of high school? May I remind you that we still have a cult of celebrity today, even though intellectually we recognize just how one-dimensional our celebrities often are, we are still viscerally drawn to them like a moth to a flame. So these impulses are hardwired into us. I've seen many Buddhist statues. Some are lovely, but I've never seen a Buddhist statue holding a hacksaw and an ice cream scoop. I've never seen a Buddhist statue whose iconography inferred that we're supposed to emotionally lobotomize ourselves. In fact, the first of the 7 enlightenment factors is mindfulness, which strongly infers that without our ability to perceive sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, without our ability to experience emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, be they external, internal, physical, mental, pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. Without this faculty, there is no enlightenment, no less peace or fulfillment. The third noble truth is that there is liberation from not necessarily the presence of our impulses, but from the tyranny of our impulses. We can still have our impulses, but there's a way to have them without having our choices and our utterances and our deeds controlled by them like a puppet on a string. And according to the Buddha, this liberation is not the product of some divine caprice, but it is the product of traversing a path and mastering a path. So I got ahead of myself, which happens. So in review, our impulses are less psychological and more physiological. There was a time when we believed everything was belief-oriented, and that makes sense because the majority of the people on this planet have been indoctrinated into faith-based worldviews. Worldviews that, to a certain degree, lauded being rigid and fearful and controlling. But with the advent of sophisticated imaging technology, ranging from the electroencephalogram to the mighty functional magnetic resonance imaging device, we can map the mind and see that things are less belief-oriented than they are physiologically oriented. Consequently, our impulses are not the product of stinking thinking. They're the product of evolution. They are hardwired into us. And as Carl Sagan mused in the final portion of his Cosmos novelization, there is no way to physiologically extricate ourselves from our baser drives without perishing. This has been explored in art and in cinema as well. I'm thinking of The Dark Crystal by John Henson. Was that it? So I've already mentioned this. What is the liberation Buddha offers us? So let's get into the Eightfold Path. There is a certain point of view that states that the seventh and eighth folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, mindfulness meditation, is the dynamo, is the fountainhead, from which the effortless effort of the sixth fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, from which the right view of change, which is the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path, flows, and from which the four facets of loving kindness also flow. What if enlightenment was nothing mystical or supernatural? What if enlightenment was simply mastery of this Eightfold Path? You were probably a smarter child than me. I was an idiot. And I found the tying of my shoes to be daunting. And it took a lot of effort and a lot of time for me to learn how to tie my shoes, but I did. And by the time I was ready for first grade, I had mastered tying my shoes. I could tie my shoes spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively, which is basically the description of any form of mastery. In the second to the final passage of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha taught that it doesn't take lifetimes to become a Buddha. That it need not even take 7 years or 7 quarters, that it can be done as little as 7 days. I do look forward to chanting and practicing with you and sharing specific techniques to help you let go of your desires after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each sect of Buddhism so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Excuse me, I am just drowning in postnasal drip right now. Forgive me if I'm making gross sounds. I do not mean to disgust. So the name of this practice text is Kind Gaze's Easy Meditation. For those who have the misfortune to be indoctrinated into a path that promotes being rigid, fearful, and controlling, they tend to view this individual described in Sanskrit as Avalokiteshvara and described in Tibetan as Chenre Zig. They view this individual as an entity that must be worshipped and supplicated. However, those of us who have the good fortune to traverse the path that promotes being flexible, loving, and laid back simply view the iconography, we view Kind Gaze as merely an archetype whose iconography reminds us that we are already wired to master, no less practice, awareness and letting go, as well as love and letting go, and bliss and letting go. In fact, this evening's first exercise is going to be a practice of bliss and letting go. Many years ago, I was surprised to learn from one of my first tantric teachers that when our energy coalesces at our crown, it's far easier to let go. And that is what is going on as we perform our metaphoric supplication to a real or imagined teacher. Please follow along. Please chant with me. Let us invite real or imagined Guru Avalokiteshvara to the crown of our head, that in the union of bliss and letting go we may train. So we take all these words and we shrink them down to just 6 syllables. During the inhalation, we silently and mentally recite the first 3 syllables, Lama come. And during the exhalation, we could silently and mentally recite the final 3 syllables, to this crown. Now, what I like to do is perform this exercise for 4 rounds or 4 repetitions, assuming that a round consists of 1 inhalation followed by 1 exhalation. And a very, very useful method to keep track of it is what I call Bengali crease counting. So what's going to happen is that during each inhalation, I'm going to advance the tip of my left thumb. And for these 4 exercises, I'm going to touch the tip of the thumb to the 3 sets of creases and then the tip of that left little finger. Please practice along with me. Here's here's something cool. You'll notice that the noun crown is using a font that infers the color white. You also notice that in Buddhist metaphysics, there is instead of using a 7-chakra system, we use a 5-chakra system. And instead of the colors correlating with the rainbow, they seem almost random. And we correlate the crown of the head with the color white, the color of freshly fallen snow, reflecting the light of 1,000 suns. Having explored our first experience of bliss and letting go, we now practice mindfulness and meditation. As we inhale, we recognize that we are already wired to access our sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the thoracic region of our spinal cord, and that this bad boy is already wired to notice, and to do so vulnerably, passively, viscerally, and randomly. But we also know that the idiot savant that is our 3-pound supercomputer between our ears can run amok unless we give it a job. So we ask of our brain, the Urkel-like brain that we have, to please silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation to facilitate noticing. And to also silently and mentally recite the 1-syllable verb ease during each exhalation to facilitate the meditation of physically relaxing and mentally releasing. Let's give this a shot right now as we continue counting on our left hand. We continue now on our left ring finger. This ease. So, even though I lifted my hand up before the camera, it's most ergonomically sustainable to rest our hands in our lap, one hand resting upon the other. So, let's perform a cycle. Let's return to our silent, passive contemplation. And now, and again, let us rest in mindfulness and meditation. Let us return to awareness and letting go. Every time we breathe in, we are already wired to generate a vertical traction between our tush and our scalp, our crown, our head. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we're already wired to access our parasympathetic nervous system, ensconced within the lower lumbar region of our spinal cord, as well as the tippy top of our cervical region. It has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. So we're not forcing anything, we're just going with the flow of the wonderful, happy coincidences provided for us by the dance of evolution and natural selection. So having climbed to contemplative cruising altitude, together as a team, let us meditate as transformatively as Luke on Dagobah, under the guidance of Yoda. Let us try on a different flavor of bliss and letting go, one that is heart-centered and known as Guru Yoga. Please chant with me. Let us invite real or imagined Lama Jinrezik to our heart mind, that in the union of bliss and letting go we may train. So, Lama blend with heart mind, and you'll notice that not only is the word heart using blue ink, or blue pixels, but in this diagram the heart region is also blue-ish. Let us return to awareness and letting go. Bliss and letting go. Awareness and letting go. Bliss and letting go. Awareness and letting go. We have trained in bliss and letting go. We have trained in awareness and letting go. Now let us train in love and letting go. I got a little ahead of myself. We're going to view letting go through a philosophical lens as we bring the illusion of the horizontal duality of us and them into the dance of impermanence and interdependence known as Madhyamaka's yoga of inconceivability. Where we find ourselves leaping over pride. Please chant with me. All circumstances or lots could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this body or form. What we're doing is we're taking our propensity to be self-centered and we're using its momentum to help us let go of that, which is deliciously ironic. Allow me to remind you that green correlates with our lower abdomen, which for women corresponds with the uterus. Let us return to awareness and letting go. All bodies or forms could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt under rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this communicational speech. Now, it's not our job to actively visualize. We're just playing with words in harmony with our breathing. All interpersonal speech could be as impermanent and interdependent as if it could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into this mind. All minds could be as impermanent and interdependent as if they could blissfully melt into rainbow light that could delightfully absorb into a vast empty void. Like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although tantalizing to the eye, could be non-graspable to the hand. Let us review the meaning of the mantra. Please chant with me. Om, I invoke the wish of healing, Mani jewel of love, and the purifying Pemi lotus of letting go, supplicating with whom may love and letting go be mastered by all. So now, let's bring the experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness into the conventional path of love and letting go, where it is love that is emphasized and it is jealousy that is leapfrogged over. Rather than indulge or controlling tendencies with the bodies of visualization, emotion, magic, and belief, we could just recite these words of love in harmony with our breathing and allow our subconscious to do the heavy lifting. May all minds of all beings now be as peacefully wise as the mind of a real Lord. Imagine Buddha symbolized by a tikle one syllable zero bija mantra. So allow me to explain. During our inhalation, we silently, mentally, and passively recite this italicized bit. During our exhalation, we physically relax as best we can while striving to chant this 6-syllable mantra 8 times per breath. And if this is your first time, please give yourself permission to have a learning curve. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. Let us return to awareness and release. Wow, this is just so weird. May all relationships or speech of all beings know be as joyfully loving as a real or imagined Buddha's communication symbolized by the six syllable mantra. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. May harmonies or forms of all beings now enjoy the beautiful, healthy scene in Buddha's statuary, depicting the blissful body of a real or imagined Devi or Yadam and archetype of enlightenment such as Chenrezig. Om mani mimi yung, 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 om mani mimi yung. May all circumstances or lots of all beings now have the good fortune or boon as a Buddha's real Ramajin Paradise Pirlandovati. Om Mani Mimi Yung 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. So the greatest obstacle people, Westerners have, or people in the modern age have, to mastering the Buddhist path is not the intellectual work, but the physical work. We haven't sat on the ground since we were children. So if we sit sustainably, as is depicted in this statue, we start off 5 minutes every 12 hours the first week, 10 minutes every 12 hours the second week, 15 minutes every 12 hours the third week. Then progressing by an additional 5 hours every 7 days. By the conclusion of the 15th week, sitting for a 15-minute lesson and a 60-minute practice will be child's play. Let us view letting go through a physiological lens as we bring the experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness into the ultimate path of love and letting go, where it is letting go that is emphasized and pride that is left over. Let us sidestep the rigidity that confuses metaphors for literal statements, and relax into the flexibility that savors the chance explaining metaphors as similes. As we inhale, all circumstances or lots could appear quite vivid. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as not graspable or void as a real or imagined paradise or vati of light. For the individual who wrote about letting go, this and the 3 exercises that follow it are excellent tools to deepen our experience of letting go. Om Mani Mimi Yung Mani Mimi Yung Om Mani Mimi Yung Mani Mimi Yung Om Mani Mimi Yung Mani Mimi Yung Om Mani Mimi Yung Mani Mimi Yung. As we inhale, all bodies or forms could feel quite sensual. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as non-graspable as or void as a real or imagined archetypal of light. Om mani me me yung 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 om mani me me yung. As we inhale the interpersonal experience of communication, all speech could sound quite resounding. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, it could feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined mantra of light. Om mani me me yung 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 om mani me me yung. As we inhale, we could notice all minds, perceptions, emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings quite clearly. Yet as we relax into our exhalation, they could feel as non-graspable or void as a real or imagined bija Gyatso of light. Om mani mimi yung 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 om mani mimi yung. Let us bring the 5 mental poisons into the path of awareness and letting go. This is one of my favorites. I was first taught this I first learned this from Chagdud Tulku, the late Chagdud Tulku. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever hate we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as mirror-like wisdom's clear void. Om mani mimi yung 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 om mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever pride we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as the equalizing wisdom of primordial voidness. Om mani mimi yung 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 om mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever craving we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as descending wisdom's bliss void. Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever jealousy we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as all-accomplishing wisdom's void intellect. Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever confusion we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could begin to feel as non-graspable as all-pervasive wisdom's awareness void. Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung mani mimi yung Om mani mimi yung Om Mani Mimi Yung, 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 Om Mani Mimi Yung. Let us seal this evening's practice by percussively chanting loving wishes for universal enlightenment and well-being. May all minds of all beings lucid yet void no be as enlightened as a Buddha's mind symbolized by a one-syllable bijam. May all speech of all beings resounding yet void no be as loving as a Buddha's speech symbolized by a multi-syllable mantra. May all forms of all beings sensual yet void no be as healthy as a atomic type depicted in Buddhist statuary. May all lots of all beings appearing yet void no be as fortunate as a pure land of law depicted in Buddhist paintings. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to tomorrow's early meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.